Welcome everybody. Today we're here at First Friday Book Club at Addison Township Public Library. My name is Jama Berman and I'm welcoming, let's go around the table and introduce ourselves today. Today is September 1st and we're discussing a man called Uwe. I'll start with you, Denise. Introduce yourself and then we'll go around the table.
Hi, I'm Denise Dewey. It's basically part of the library club.
Welcome, Denise.
Thank you.
Mary Ellen Warner.
Welcome, Mary Ellen.
I'm Dorothy Arnold.
Welcome, Dorothy. Welcome, everyone. And I first want to take this opportunity to thank Denise for making this lovely zucchini bread. It's homemade, and it comes from a recipe that she got from her grandmother.
Yes.
And so we're really excited to have it. And we have a lot of fun at our book club. And today, as I said, we're discussing a man called Uwe. But first, I wanted to make a few announcements for the library. Coming up in this September, on September 5th, we will be having a Red Cross blood drive. It's from 1 to 7. On September 16th, we will have the Classic Car and Cupcake Challenge because we're all about classics here at the library. It's a great day of fun to show off your classics and your baking skills, and we have a lot of great trophies that you can win and prizes that you can win as well. We're having pizza and we're spinning oldies in the parking lot. So please head down here on Saturday, September 16th. And on September 28th, we'll be having a program called The Genealogy of a House. If you are into genealogy, if you're into local history, if you've ever wondered why your house was built or anything quirky about it, this is the program for you. And coming up, in October, we will be having a pumpkin decorating program the first Thursday in October. And October 23rd, just before Halloween, we will be having the scientific paranormal investigators out here at the library to help you debunk any paranormal experiences you may be having in your home. But without further ado, we will be talking about a man called Uwe. I just wanted to give a brief summary of the book. Off the bat, I just want to say how much I love this book. It was a very heartwarming, fulfilling read, and I have to say at first that I did not like the character at all. I spent the first 20 or 30 pages going, this is just the saddest guy I've ever met. But it's about a real guy living his real life. And you get to know him through a lot of his quirky neighbors. And some of those neighbors he calls by very funny names, like the pregnant foreign woman, the lanky one, the cat annoyance, the shirts, the suits, and one of the young men is gay. He calls him a bent one. So Uwe has a strange way of looking at the world, and I personally found it was my best, almost favorite book of the year so far. And so we'll go around the room and we'll talk a little bit about how you liked it, and let's start with Denise.
Hey, I really enjoyed the book. I really liked Uwe. He was just, I don't know, I can't even explain, but just his description of everybody that he was involved with in that little area he lived. And he was such a sweet man. But it was like everybody seemed to have a problem with him. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I had no problem with this guy. I was like, my heart went out to him.
Yeah.
And I haven't had a book that's really kept my attention more than this book.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, it was extremely easy to read it, and it was also just life-affirming in its way.
Yes, definitely was.
Yes.
So I really enjoyed it.
Oh, awesome. That's great. Mary Ellen, what did you think?
I loved the book, and I liked the man from the first chapter. So maybe I'm a crabby person.
Oh, okay. You mean how Uwe was in the beginning.
From the very first, because I could see his viewpoint of the person was not providing customer service for him and making him crazy. Besides that, any book that has a cat that gets saved and then is part of the family, I'm a cat lady, so there's a kitty on the cover, and I knew I was going to like the book, so I did.
That's great. Thank you. Dorothy, what did you think?
I agree with everybody else. I enjoyed the book. It was the kind of book that I could put down, pick up, and just go on reading without trying to figure out who somebody was. And I sort of related to him, thinking I've met people like him. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could relate to him to to people in my life at one time or another. He's he's called a curmudgeon, and he's a typical curmudgeon, crabby person.
That's right.
But he redeemed himself.
He does.
Yeah.
He does.
Are you saying that he was his character based on somebody?
I think that what I understood is that the author, who's a Swedish author, he's probably about 38 years old. His name is Fredrik Backman, and Fredrik Backman, I read an interview that he gave recently, and before he wrote this book, he was a truck driver. He did not go to college. He was a working class guy, and even when he talks about his life as a writer, it just came upon him unexpectedly. And so my understanding is that he started channeling this character in a blog, and he wrote as if he was Uva, and then someone said, hey, why don't you write this novel? And he did. He wrote this novel about the character, and he talks about how, that his job as a truck driver was a real job, not like a writer. A writer is just, a fake job. It's just a job of no account. It's just an intellectual, thing, but it allowed him to pursue his other hobbies. So the writer is a very funny guy. I thought.
I could actually relate to a lot of his likes and dislikes.
Yes, yeah. I felt so too.
And I read that, and now it just occurs to me as you're saying it, the working man is the hero in this book, and so he was a working man, the author, if he was a truck driver. And so that's why the working man is a hero, everyone that he comes across, and the suits, who are the office people, are the bad guys.
Yes.
White collar versus blue collar.
That's exactly right. That's a really major theme in this book.
And I agree.
Yes. Well, it really, I think it resonates in our own community, about, there's this talk between Uva and his next door neighbor about the cars they own, and Uva has had a Saab since he was a teenager, and I think the Saab is like one of the greatest cars in Sweden. Everyone loves Saab there, and then his neighbor only drives a Volvo, and that's the other competing car there that's manufactured there in Sweden. So they have this ongoing competitiveness between the two men about their automobiles.
And that's typical of people.
It really is. Yeah.
They probably kept track of their gas mileage too.
That's right. They kicked the tires.
Yeah.
They just chatted.
And if he's a truck driver, and to the men, the difference in the cars, to me it's like, does it start when I go out to the driveway? Can I go to the store? But people do become really attached to what they're driving.
Oh yes,
Oh,
they
yeah.
do. I
Whether you bought a Ford or you bought a Chevrolet,
Yep.
and you didn't change.
That's right. Yeah. In this town, you see it a lot because people all work for the automotive industry.
Right.
Yeah. And when I first moved to Michigan, I saw a lot of signs on people's cars that said, buy American, buy Ford.
Yeah, I work at Ford, so I buy a Ford.
Right, exactly. So I think that's...
Good for them.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
It shows loyalty, and he was a very loyal man.
Yes, this book in the metro area would appeal to a lot of people because of that, because there's real feelings about what kind of car you're driving
That's right.
around here.
Yes, exactly. We're going to go through some of the questions and see what you think about some of these ideas. In the opening scene, Uva attempts to purchase a computer. Now, I remember in the beginning when I first started reading this, I didn't realize that this is kind of a flashback. But it's brought up in the beginning of the book, and you don't know why he's buying the computer, and you don't really understand that until you get to the end of the book. And so, but all you see is Uva interacting with the salesperson, and the salesperson is this young guy behind the counter, has no sympathy for Uva, and Uva seems to be computer illiterate, which, he may or may not be, but it's Uva's personality that he's having a problem with.
He grates on a person.
Yeah. So what did you think? It says This scene expresses the main points of Uva's ongoing battle with everybody in the world. Did you feel that in the beginning? Did anybody get put off by that scene?
I think the beginning of the book sort of just tells you what the rest of the book's going to be like. And I mean, like I said earlier, a lot of people can relate to him very well.
Yes, that's true.
It's, he's a typical fellow in his late 50s.
That's right. He is in his late 50s. He's not
Going on
really,
80.
really old by any means.
Yeah.
No,
And he's had a lot of tragedies in his life, too.
that's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. A lot of tragedies.
The trying to buy a computer or a phone, those are the two things that you run into, I believe, like he did, that they're not offering customer service. They're selling something, and they really don't want you to ask a question.
That's right.
It's like, why are you stupid? That's what the salesperson is kind of saying, like, oh, I need to get away from here because you're asking dumb questions. So really, they weren't offering customer service. And when you start asking, if the salesperson says, do you need this, and they don't know, to then ask more complicated questions is saying you're being patronizing and you aren't. And so for him to have a fit and say, that's it, everybody go to lunch, nobody helps, it's like, yeah, that's what happens every time you try to buy something. Now, if he was in the hardware store, no one would be mean to him because he'd know exactly. He'd say, well, I need this kind of nails, or I need this kind of flooring, and they would understand, and they wouldn't be patronizing to him like, oh, you don't know anything.
That's very true. You
And
bring
late
up a really
50s
good
is
point.
young. Late 50s is a young man.
That's right. Exactly.
I did. Before I found out how old he was, I thought he was older.
I thought they were going to say he was in his 70s, and
Yeah, that's-
it's like, oh no, he was almost middle-aged.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I think that you get the sense that there's this big divide between the generations in the beginning of the story, and by the end of the story, you get a sense that they're more united and there's more respect being shown between people.
Yes.
Yeah, which I think is really wonderful. Uwe loves things that have a purpose, that are useful. How does this worldview fail him when he believes himself to be useless? How is he convinced that he can still be useful? I think it's a major theme in this usefulness in this book. Would anybody like to talk about that?
Well, he started out by helping people, and that's when his skills came into use. The neighbor that was moving in didn't know anything about backing up a trailer.
That's right.
That's right.
He started becoming useful to the people that he was meeting. So it gave him a sense of being somebody who's important.
That's right. I think you bring up a good point, because now the shoe is on the other foot. When they're backing up that truck into Uwe's mailbox, suddenly it's the young man with all the tech savvy who doesn't know how to drive properly.
I know.
You know, and doesn't follow the rules, and Uwe's got to come to his aid and show him what's right. So it's just a really humorous scene that's just is wonderful.
It just goes to show that some skills are still needed besides knowing how to use a computer.
That's right. Yeah,
He
exactly.
knows basic life skills,
Yeah.
which are actually most important.
That's right.
But when you're in the computer store, they don't count.
And in this day
Life
and
skills
age,
don't count.
Yeah, today,
this day and age, not many people know how to change a light bulb anymore.
no, they don't.
Right.
No.
That's right.
And definitely don't know how to back up a trailer.
I don't.
I had to learn, but be that as it may, the young people nowadays, society is so changed.
And an example is, later in the book,
right.
he teaches the neighbor to drive a car with a stick shift, right?
That's exactly right.
Yes.
And that's another thing that you don't see anymore.
No.
That's true.
In fact, my grandson just had a birthday, and he has to drive a car with a stick shift.
Oh my gosh.
And I guess he picked it up and nothing flat.
Wow.
I can't drive one.
I had to learn, I
tried,
that was,
I can't.
when I was young, that was one thing I had to learn how to do that. But nowadays, all the cars, everything's automatic. You just push a button.
The book shows what's still being done, what is still needed, besides the technical know-how that everybody seems to have nowadays. We still get back to the basics.
That's right. exactly.
Like I said, that he called it, you're getting a real driver's license.
Yes.
If you can do the real driver's license, you can do the other ones, but if you need to know that basic.
Yeah.
And Uwe makes himself useful by going around and helping people fix their furnaces.
Yeah.
And you said, like, change the light bulbs or fix a window, or he constantly finds he's lost his usefulness because he was fired, and his wife, he was let go. Let's put it like that, from his
Well,
job.
his age.
His age was he was laid off, or he was asked to retire, like so many people are, and he equates his value as a human being with what he can produce. And to me, that was very sad, because he couldn't stop thinking like that. He couldn't move past, like, he was useful to his wife, and he was useful to his society, and he wasn't able to serve in the armed forces, I think because he had a health problem. It was it his heart, I believe,
An enlarged heart.
which was an interesting piece that comes back to play in the very end of the book, but that whole idea of being useful and being of service actually helps him survive in the end. As much as he decides he doesn't want to live, he gets caught up in being useful over and over and over throughout the book, and becomes a hero to everyone, which is just an amazing way this book turns.
No, but one of the other things, I think, reading that question, how many ways he tried to end it for himself.
Yes.
And that none of them were successful. And I think that's where he was feeling real useless.
Oh, yes.
Because, like, what kind of person can't just figure this out? That would
That's right.
maybe feel so basic. Because when it started on, I'm going to put the screw in the ceiling, it's like, what? Then as that developed, it's like, oh, he's going to hang himself, okay.
Yes.
But then still so considerate of everybody that he put down plastic so that,
Yeah,
and
that
leave
was
everything,
strange.
so
Yeah.
that he didn't inconvenience anybody as a dead person. He still was concerned about the other people.
Some of the ways he was trying to off himself, I guess you want to say, the way he went around about it sort of made me feel he wasn't trying very hard.
True,
They
that is
just-
true.
Yeah.
You're right.
point.
For as well as he figured out everything else, why didn't he figure that out?
Yeah.
Well, because he really didn't want to do it.
Right.
So he was just,
Yeah.
I'm trying.
He wanted somebody to stop him.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm gonna do this, but it was taking him. I was like, by all rights, it shouldn't take you that long. But he didn't want to really do that.
Those parts of the book were very humorous, I thought.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were.
Yeah, there was also the scenes where he comes to the cemetery almost every day, just like clockwork, and he stands by Sonia's grave, and he talks to her as if she's still alive. And at first I thought she was still alive, to be honest. I really did.
It took a little bit to figure out she's not there. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he keeps coming up with these heartfelt excuses of why he wasn't ready to meet her in heaven. I think that he wasn't dressed ready. He wasn't dressed properly, or he couldn't pull it off properly. He hadn't fulfilled the needs of his neighbors yet, and all kinds of reasons why he wasn't ready to be in heaven with her, which was really adorable. And the whole idea of death being a process was a really wonderful part of this book, I thought.
But you know what?
When later in this book, when he takes the kitty to the cemetery, and he says to his wife, "He came like this. I didn't break the kitty."
Yes.
Like, it's not my fault. I'm helping the kitty. It was like, because he just knew if she really was there, she would be, what happened to that kitty? It's like, I'm helping it.
That's right. He's still answering.
It was very sweet.
Yes,
Very sweet.
I thought that was just adorable. As readers, we get to know Uwe slowly, with his past only being revealed piece by piece. What surprised you about his past? Why do you think the author revealed Uwe's past the way he did? Why do you think he does it in a series of, series of stories? Instead of saying, hey, Sonia died, and then, or we lost our child, or, you get these stories, and they're really quite captivating.
I think it made you love him.
Yes.
Because when you look back, and it's like,
yeah.
that happened, that happened.
Well,
Yeah, that was.
it gave you an idea why he was the way he was.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean, the author did not reveal everything right away. I mean, he was telling his story, and it just, you had to find out why he was that way.
That's true. That's right.
I mean, he had a difficult childhood. I mean, everything, played into why he was crabby.
Right, right. And I know that I wasn't sympathetic to this character in the beginning until I started hearing these stories. And I realized what a hard life he had. He lost his mother, and then by the time he was 16, he had lost his dad, and he wouldn't accept any charity from the community, from the church. And then he went to work in his father's shop or his father's factory. He was really a man by himself that had to rely on and then he was ripped off and scammed by an insurance company after he had rebuilt his family home. He was a man that was afraid to reach out, and until he met Sonia. And the stories about Sonia kind of really inform you about who he becomes as a person, how he develops and becomes a more useful man in society.
There's a lot of people like that in today's day and age. That's why I think I like the book, because I could relate to people in that situation. And I was like, wow, I know somebody that, and it was like, but I said it's in a book. So
Yes.
I really enjoyed that.
Yes.
Yeah, really made it really deep in my heart for this guy. It was like, wow, here I'm reading the book, and this is something I'm living in today's day and age.
Exactly.
That was, that was really, to me, that was like, just hit me like a rock. It was like, wow.
Yes, I listened to the book, and by the end I was driving along and I was getting to the last chapter and I was tearing up, and I felt like I had to pull over, to be honest.
You listened to the book on tape?
I did.
And you read it also?
Yes. I pick it up in between listenings because I really wanted to look at the words, because the words are different when you read them than when you listen to them. For me, it's a different experience.
It's like you're watching TV with captioning, only you're doing it with an audio and a book.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Reinforcing.
Yeah.
Right. And the actors or the actor or the reader reads it in such a way that it's fun.
Yeah, I
It's a
think
way.
that would be a good book to listen to.
Yeah, it really was. It was fun, and I really liked. I mean, at the beginning, you meet this woman he calls the blonde weed, and she has a little dog, who Uwe calls the mutt, and he threatens, and the dog pees on his paving stones.
Oh, yeah.
And he gets so angry with her, and she just snips back at him, and she's rude too, and he threatens to electrify the paving stones. And I think at one point he actually goes forward and takes his know-how and electrifies those stones, and then thinks better about it before any tragedy happens.
His conscience got the best of him.
He knew his wife wouldn't be happy with him for doing that.
Right.
He thinks about the afterworld a lot and how he's going to look in heaven, and to his wife. She's his conscience, I think. Yeah. We all know our own grumpy old men in our lives.
Oh, most definitely.
We have them.
Yes.
How do Uwe's core values lead him to appear as such a cranky old coot, when he is in fact nothing of the sort? Which of these values do you agree or disagree with? I think we've sort of touched on that a little bit, about his values,
Yeah.
about his sort of fear of the outside world in a way, or his judgment.
Yeah, because I think of his age, he wasn't a young man anymore. A lot of he had still the old-fashioned values of somebody his age, and a different work ethic.
Yes.
It's all tied in to the type of person he was.
But he wasn't that old.
No, he wasn't.
It was
But
like,
still, he was over in the middle age.
well, yeah,
Yeah,
that he was.
He didn't feel useful anymore.
Yeah, well.
Which is typical.
I think that it was losing his wife that made him be at such loose ends and not feel useful, more so than the job. Losing the job reinforced it. That
Right.
no, you need to go home and relax. And in fact, I don't want to go home and relax. That's
Do you remember there was a part in the book where it was mentioned that he and his wife were complete opposites?
Oh, that's right.
I remember that.
Good
yes.
point.
But
Yes.
she needed him so much for basic things that then he felt so useful.
Yeah, I think, yeah, she definitely made him feel that he
Yes.
was useful.
But I think when you read it, I think she made him feel useful before she had her accident. That was,
And it was, it was a surprise when we heard how she died. I didn't expect that,
No, and she was
no
pregnant.
wonder he
right?
didn't like the suits.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. I think there was a quote in there about for Uva, everything was black and white, and Sonia brought color. She was the color in his life.
As I say, the grumpy old men, there's grumpy old women,
Yes.
and I'm one of them. There's no gray or anything in my life. Everything is black or white. So to me, it was like, what? He's not doing anything wrong. That's how it's supposed to be. Yes, like that. So that's why I liked him from page 1.
Although Uva has some major disagreements with the way the world turned out, there are some undeniable advantages to the modernization he finds so hollow. How do these advantages improve Uva's life, even if he can't admit it? Does anybody have any feelings about the modernization in his life? For me, it seemed like it played a big role in the care of his wife. His wife would have been completely isolated. She was a school teacher, and she loved her job. She wasn't able to have, she lost her child when she was pregnant, and they had that terrible accident they had when they were on vacation in Spain, I think it was.
Yeah.
And he was able to rehabilitate their house as well as he was able to take her to work every day. And that for me was, he had to submit to the changes around him and get the help of technology. Though they probably might have been able to go forward without the technology, it still was somewhat of a help, I thought.
What I didn't understand was why the so-called console was so dead set against letting her do things, letting them, letting her continue to teach. I mean,
Yeah.
it took place in another country,
True.
but still they did things so differently. Then, do we have those kind of problems here?
Not that I know of. I think we're pretty open-minded about.
Yeah,
Keeping people
that
in
I
their
couldn't
jobs.
understand, that he had to go to the school and build ramps for her to get into the school in order for her to teach.
Yes, that's right.
That was the one that really got me, that they said, no, they couldn't put a ramp, and so he went
Right,
and built the
right,
ramp. Like,
right.
well, I'll build the ramp so that my wife can get in.
And then his neighbor that got sick, these bureaucrats came in and wanted to remove him from his house. I mean, that doesn't happen here in the U.S.
No, I don't think it does.
That part was puzzling to me.
I was wondering if it was a place that had the universal kind of health care that
Oh,
everybody...
probably it did.
And I
Yes.
was wondering if some of the
Right.
things that felt real strange, if that was what it
Right,
was, because...
right. But how could that affect a man's wife from caring for him
Right.
in their home?
That's what I mean.
And I
It's like,
didn't understand
they
that.
weren't going to give him a choice. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you can't.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what I thought. It might have been because it wasn't
But
United States.
as far as technology, give me a hint.
I don't know if this question truly applies to him, except that I think it might have something to do with him, being forced to change, regardless of how he feels about the world. He still had to buy a new car, even though I think he refused to buy. After the Saab was starting to be, when it merged, he refused to buy the next
Oh,
model.
right, yeah,
So he
yeah.
had to buy an older model,
Right.
Gotcha.
which I thought was fascinating. The whole obsession with cars was fun for me too.
Yeah, and then just recently I saw where people were comparing cars my car's got 200,000 miles on it, and somebody else's car has got 150,000 miles on it, and I just saw that recently, and that made me think of the book too. And this cars.
That's right. And when his neighbor bought the BMW, that was the end of their friendship. Because it wasn't a Swedish company, it was a German company that built that car. I thought that was sort of a hilarious.
Yeah, he wasn't keen on French-made cars either.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He had nothing but bad things to say.
But he was okay with Toyota, I guess it was.
Yeah, oh, that's right. Yeah.
Strange.
Let's see. It says Parvana's perspective on life, and everyone remembers Parvana. She was the next door neighbor who was very pregnant. She was as different. Her perspective on life as radically different as Uva's. Eventually succeeds in breaking Uva out of his shell, even if she can't change his feelings about sobs. How does her brash, extroverted attitude manage to somehow be both rude and helpful? What did everyone think about Parvana? She was quite a character.
Yeah, I didn't like her that well. I was like, I'm not a person that can handle people that are how she was. And it was like, I don't care for this woman. But
That's okay.
yeah, that was,
I think she reminded him of his wife.
Yes.
That extrovert stuff.
Yeah.
that's true, that's true.
She was honest with him too. She would come right out and say, don't
she
say
would.
that. Don't talk like that.
And she was a good mother. And
That's
taking
right.
care of her children.
Oh, yeah, that's,
Yeah.
And putting up with her husband who was not useful.
Yeah,
that word.
She definitely wore the pants in the family.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think that she also became kind of like the daughter he never had.
True, that too.
It seemed like a daughterly kind of person that he could take under his wing. I think he reminded her that she wasn't stupid, that she wasn't an idiot, that she could learn how to drive too, which I thought was just so a wonderful insight coming from a man we all think is pig-headed. He showed his love to her. And I think she showed her love to him, and she kept him from killing himself on numerous occasions too.
Yeah, without knowing it.
Without knowing it, yeah. I think she had insight into what he was doing based on some of the evidence that she was.
You're right.
She was observing, like she noticed the plastic wrap all over the floor and the hook on the ceiling, and she said something funny like, "This reminds me of a scene out of Dexter."
Yeah.
That was one of the most hilarious scenes. Like, has everyone seen Dexter?
I've seen some parts.
It's a fun. Well, it's about a serial killer who's really trying to off all the bad people in the world, and he only chooses bad people that are killers, people who are savage beasts. He's a vigilante serial killer, but his typical scene is to plastic coat the entire room and then make sure that there's no evidence after. But this was a reference to that in the book, which is clever, I thought, on the part of the writer.
I don't see in one of the questions, but it ties to how he likes that woman and her children.
Oh, yes.
That the young man that turns out to be gay, for somebody who you would think was that crabby and black and white, he was so not only accepting, but then spoke to the person's father about the importance of family and children, and so he wasn't narrow-minded.
No, he was tolerant of a lot of things that people.
Right. He had.
You would think he wouldn't be.
You would, from like all of the things you read about him, you'd think that if he ran into a gay young man, that he would be one of the people that said something mean, or
right.
ignored him.
Right.
And instead, he was so supportive. But the most important part, spoke to the man's father about being accepting.
That's right, and he has a drink with his dad. They sit down and have a talk.
It's like, you have your child, I don't have a child.
That's right.
I don't think he actually said that, but that's the idea, that I don't have a child, and you have a child.
He was
And he's a good person.
He was a very complex person.
Yes.
And
you didn't think so by reading. You wouldn't think it at
Right.
first, but then it was like, yes.
Right.
And so he loved those children, and he loved this one, and everybody's kids. He wanted to help everybody's kids.
actually, he was a very likable person, when you get down to it.
That's right. I think he used words like bent when he referred to that boy at first, that kind of put people off, or put us all off, and then surprised us when he turned around and showed his ability to invite him into his home and look out for him. And I think he could probably identify with him, because I think he was bullied and abused by people his own age when he was a
Definitely.
teenager as well. Because
Oh, that's right. You know what, see, okay, that would, seeing the young gay man would the same thing. You seeing him bullied, would be on his side. Not why you were being bullied, but the fact that you were being bullied. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be on your side if you're the victim, and be supportive and help you.
You know,
That's right.
don't you find it amazing? I do with a lot of books that I read, and I read a lot. Authors, you know, they come up with these people. They come up with these personalities. It's amazing.
it is. It is. Yeah.
I know, it's like, that's why, are they based on someone? Because there's so many, there's so many characteristics.
That's right. And while it's not autobiographical necessarily, it's based on
See,
their
Denise
society.
could write a book
Yeah.
about crabby women like this. She lives next door.
Oh, I think we all could.
No, I can do the grumpy old man. I've got it. I can definitely do a book on that. It's like,
You remember Driving Miss Daisy, where we had the grumpy
Yeah.
old lady
Yes.
who's eventually lovable, but
And that was based on somebody in
That's right.
real life.
yeah. But I think you're right about Dorothy mentioning the Grumpy Old Men movie.
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that would be
definitely.
a fun
It
thing
makes me
to-
want to go watch that movie again.
You know what, it's occurring to me as we talk about it, how he didn't like the people who wore white shirts, like the insurance people and that, but they had rules, but they were arbitrary rules.
Yeah.
The thing about, she can't come in the school because there's no ramp.
That's right.
And that was, well, there's no ramp. Well, his sensible black and white, well, we'll make a ramp. Oh, okay. Or the insurance ones, well, no, it's in, like the fire of his house. Well, it's on the borderline, so we can't help until we get permission. Oh, you know, he was being sabotaged. But the suits had arbitrary rules that actually didn't make sense about
Right.
things.
Well, they
And that
have-
made him crazy.
They had a strange government, governing body, I mean, where this took place in Sweden, or, a Scandinavian country. And, they have social medicine
Yeah.
like Canada does, completely different than the US. And from reading this book, I hope we never do
right, I agree.
have,
This is, in the last, it does have to do with what we're talking about. In the last week or two, a bill got passed by the Senate and the President signed it about hearing aids.
Oh,
That all along you had to, there's real strict rules about who can sell hearing aids and that.
Yes.
Well, it makes them real expensive for
Yeah,
the
they
general
are.
public. Well, they've been pushing through so that there's change. And President Trump signed it like a week ago, and I got this in a hearing loss newsletter. And now whatever agency writes the rules about who can sell hearing aids, it then got bumped back since it got approved by the House and the Senate and the President. They have 3 years to write the new guidelines.
oh my goodness.
3 years
That's a long time.
for bureaucracy and rules
But
and
that's
that's
what
the
you're
kind of
reading,
stuff in
right,
here
exactly.
that exactly make it,
Yeah.
because everybody goes, oh, but we're not going to have any difference for too soon. And 3 whole years for a government agency to develop new guidelines.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing, and here he'd go, ah!
Yeah, when I started reading about what you could do and what you couldn't do, I mean, it makes me wonder, who makes these laws? And, everybody, I'm sure at one time or another, has run into these, what's the word,
Stupid laws.
Inane?
Laws that are, yes.
I mean, it's not just us that has them, I mean, everybody has them, I mean,
Well, that's why, to me, he wasn't crabby by being mad at those people.
I would be too.
Right.
He was the sensible one.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And the rule makers were that were arbitrary. They're, what difference does it make? Like the man that they were going to take out of his home, even though he had
Rude.
a wife to take care of him.
Right.
Well, no, the rules say you have to go.
Yeah.
Like, no.
No, there's a lot of bureaucracy that it talks about. I know that my own mother-in-law is experiencing that right now, and it's pretty frightening how it can really play with people's
Yeah,
lives.
it's-
Go back to the modern things. It just occurred to me, he had those young people help him with computer search towards the end of the story and have all the information that made the people that were trying to take his friend out of the house back off.
That's right. Exactly.
So, but the young people helped him. He wouldn't have known how to do the computer search, and them
Yeah.
saying, well, how do you
They're
know
good
this?
for something,
Yeah, it's like, well, the internet.
yeah.
Exactly.
Because the kids had told him, well, we'll look it up on the internet and then we'll be able to, it's like all these records, it made them go away and leave the man alone.
That's right. Exactly. Yes.
Didn't let his friends and his family take care of him.
He accepted that. No, that's a good point.
Thing, that's what I like about book clubs.
Yes. I didn't occur, I'm reading these questions like I can't come up with an answer. What's it mean?
No.
And then what we're talking, it's like, oh, that's what it means.
Somebody will know.
Yes, exactly. I thought we'd skip ahead to the question about the cat. The question, do you feel that cat represented anything in Uva's life? Did you feel like that cat was there for a reason in the story? And what kind of role did the cat ultimately play from the beginning to the end of the story? Because I thought the cat, he started out as being called the cat annoyance, and by the end of the story, the cat, I believe, is sleeping
On his bed,
on his bed.
on his wife's pillow.
On his wife's pillow.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
It was something for him to care about, to love, with his wife not there any longer.
Right. That's exactly true.
That's why
Yes.
so many people have a pet.
Well, yes.
Oh.
Yeah. I thought Uva and Sonia's love story is one of the most affecting and tender parts of the book. What is the key to the romance, and why do they fit so well together? I'm so glad we got to learn about Sonia. Sonia is just, we learned about her after she's dead, and it felt like we learned so much about Uva when we learned about Sonia.
Well, because they were such opposites, they were a couple. That's what they say, opposites attract. And the way he was, he needed a Sonia in his life. I mean, everybody probably does. You go through so much, and that's without her, he was a crabby old man. And she showed him the good part of being married. And once she wasn't there any longer, I mean, he reverted to a crabby old man, I guess.
Oh, I agree.
At some point, I thought her father was just like her husband. The father-in-law was an old cranky guy
Oh,
that
that's
lived
right.
way out.
That's the point.
So she married somebody like her father.
Yeah, which I think
And
is
that she was pretty and outgoing and everybody wanted to date her. She was attracted to somebody
Yeah,
like her father,
right.
who was a good person and crabby and set in his ways and lived out where nobody would talk to him. I think that's what I did.
That's right. That's so funny. No, it's a very human story, and I think it really shows you the truth about people in a way that you're not expected. You see the main character giving labels to people. He gives these unfortunate labels to
names.
everybody in his life, and by the end of the story, you're hearing them being called by their real names, including the reporter, who spends a lot of time trying to get a story about his heroism when he rescues this person from death on a train track, or a subway track, I guess, or elevated train track in town. He doesn't want to be a hero. He just wants, he wants to get away from that.
I forgot about the part about
Yeah.
him jumping in front of the train and then realizing that he had to help the other person and that then the
Yeah.
train driver was going to feel bad. It's like, for crying out loud, I can't
See,
do anything.
he
But
was
he
meant-
worried about everybody else.
He was meant to be on Earth alive.
Yes.
That's right. Exactly.
He had a purpose.
That's so true. He had a purpose, and he was a very good human being after all, as much as you maybe were tempted to hate him or judge him. I think that this book taught me a lot about judging people, that we see people's superficial sides to begin with, and until we take a chance to get to know them, which is what he kept doing over and over and over, taking chances to get to know people and bringing those facades down and getting to love people. I think that's why, for me, it was a powerful story. Yeah.
I think really of all the books that we have read in this book club so far, this was the best.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear you say that.
I think we like people books.
Yes.
We like people books.
We do.
Well, then I think we'll segue into next month's book then. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And this book, it's called Sullivan's Island. It's by Dorothea Benton Frank. And it's a romance, I want to call it / loving memoir of Sullivan's Island, which is where the author's family is from. And Sullivan's Island is an island off of Charleston, South Carolina. And her family has a historic home there. And in the story, she finds out that her husband has been unfaithful to the main character. And
I read it.
You might have read it. This is an old book. It's the first in a series. The author has written about 20 books, Dorothea Benton Frank, and she had never written before. Her husband challenged her to write a book. She wanted to reclaim the family home, which was on this island, Sullivan's Island, and her husband said, no, I don't want anything to do with that house. And she goes, well, I'll show you. I'm going to write a novel and sell 1 million copies, and then we'll be able to buy that house. So that's exactly what she did. She wrote a novel, she sold 1 million copies, and she bought the house back. And this is an amazing story in that sense that it's about history, and it takes place in the Low Country, which was originally settled. It was kind of like the Ellis Island for the American slaves, the people that were brought here from Africa. So there's a lot of intermingling of history of the South plus a present day love story. And
But it's still fiction, isn't it?
it's still fiction.
Yeah.
It's still fiction, but it gives you some historical background about the area, which I think is fascinating, and I think you'll love it because it's a very human story about a woman's quest for herself. And after her marriage dissolves, she and her daughter go to the island and reconnect with her family. So I hope you'll love this book. I think it'll be an interesting discussion for next month. So I think we will, and also in the future, I'd like us to entertain more books that you would like to suggest for this group. So think about it for next time, and if you think of anything before we meet next time, give me a small list of books and authors that you would love to suggest for our upcoming meetings, because I would like to pursue some of those books and have your input in future discussions.
You've done an excellent job so far.
Well, thank you. I think it's always good. I think we learn so much about each other through meeting like this and through discussing books that I'd like to learn more about you all through your discussion and your interest in your own books too. So to kind of give the impetus for the club a little bit of put more skin in the game for you too. So please feel free to give some suggestions and
Think about it.
yeah, okay. Oh, very good. All right.
How about nonfiction? Is that ever
Oh, absolutely, certainly. I think that would be a great
What did you
idea.
say?
nonfiction?
Okay.
There's a lot of great nonfiction out there.
Like, say, a biography or,
Yeah, absolutely.
it would be a different change.
That's right. There's a lot of great biography.
And we would see things that we wouldn't see if we just read it by ourselves.
Yeah, one biography or autobiography I read recently was A Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. And it's
I think I heard that.
Yeah, it's a really good story about a woman growing up in a family that's very dysfunctional, and she ends up, I believe, she becomes a writer, of course, and you just follow her through her wacky family and how she overcomes the hoarder and self-obsessive behavior of her parents, and it's a great read. But yeah, let's suggest some other books too. I would love to. I'd like to get a running list of books we might want to entertain for the future. So thank you today for being here. I really appreciate you joining in this pursuit of fun through literature, and thanks for being here at the Addison Township Public Library.
You're welcome. Enjoy this.
It was great.